Wrestling, when mentioned to people who know the basics, can tend to be looked upon as just physical, and the story being limited to just the physicalities, or rather a simple goal of reaching for a title, because that has always been the formula for the industry for quite some time. The end goal was always winning. But the amount of storytelling that can be put into wrestling media can often be seen as daytime soap opera sort of feel. Think of Home and Away or EastEnders, but with more violence and less baby drama plotlines. However, within the current society of modern day wrestling, there are quite a few wrestlers that are willing to take the next step with their stories. Today, I'll be talking about one of many. When people mention the current impact of one Kenny Omega, you often expect to hear the mention of his Meltzer rating, his overall performances, his connection to Kota Ibushi, and the story within that connection. But within the story of Kenny Omega, it is not as tread upon as what people think. Now, the story of Omega and his wrestling can be dated back to 2008 DDT, or even further into the early 2000s, but that isn't what this video is going to be treading on. I'm going to be looking at two major storyline arcs and the events prior and post those arcs. Kenny's Quest, what I'm now calling Kenny's Test. Within these two, I'll be examining key emotional, physical, and mental triggers in the story, how they connect to others, himself, and the companies he's currently working for and or worked for in the past. Quick warning, I am not the expert on all things Kenny Omega. I only went into this wrestling fandom for the past month or so, so I think it's important to note that whatever I say is my own opinion. And if you want to know more information about this topic and many topics connected to it, there we go, I'll be leaving links down below. So let's get started. Whenever mentioning the character of Kenny Omega, two versions come into people's minds. One half of the Golden Lovers or the Cleaner. And the cultural impact of those two versions are very prominent, especially when expressing and talking about Omega himself. However, within these two arcs, we as the audience are allowed a deep dive into the innermost thoughts that connected the two versions to one another, and one pushes the other and ultimately either breaks the shell or allows to push forward. Wrestle Kingdom 13 was a symbol of the near end of Kenny's time with New Japan, within outside kayfabe relations of course, so it's safe to assume that Kenny's quest was the ultimate hurrah to what his story represents physically and mentally in that time frame. With vague context, prior to Kenny's quest, the battle of changing the world with his loved ones by his side was a huge feat within Omega's mind, now regaining stability within himself and his connections to not only the Young Bucks, but also his other half. Within this time, Tanahashi, who refined and was the sole purpose of the current ongoing golden era of New Japan, wanted nothing more than to bring Omega's mind back down to earth. This is where Kenny's quest starts to take form.
すいません。これください。
ああ、ケニースクエストか。ファンなの？
うん、大好きだよ。
センスがいいですね。楽しんでください。
Goodbye.
Oh, and good night. Bang!
What is interesting about Kenny's quest is the power of not only the inner voice, which I will be discussing later, but also the power of those surrounding him. Throughout the video, we grasp onto a narrative of always being a heel in the eyes of the audience, the company, and slowly enough himself. Even showing Tanahashi using the power of the New Japan president, Harold George Mang, to belittle and break down the character. But Omega calls out to his only hope. That hope doesn't respond, which ends up heightening the powers of his rivals supporters, and everyone on his rival's side, turning into the biggest fear he'd hate to face most of all: disappointment. But the story didn't end. Within his own might and the support of those around him, including fans, friends, and his lover, he reaches a hero's conclusion within the story of Kenny's quest by showing mercy to his opponent, giving respect to hopefully getting respect in return. However, that was mainly all fiction. Within Wrestle Kingdom during his match, he had the support of his friends, his fans, but a distant support from the one person that he needed the most. And to put it simply, he lost, proving the reality of not only to those who supported him, but to himself, thus leaving New Japan with a sour note and ending AEW with a weight that he couldn't shake off. Like Icarus, Kenny flew too close to his own sun and is now currently facing the consequences of the matter. Within AEW so far, the character of Omega has been one of lost hope and missing pieces, even being reflected in his entrance. Going into his first ever match in Double or Nothing with a defeat to the current AEW champion Chris Jericho, he is now being faced into a feud with a man so similar to himself, Jon Moxley. A man who wants to defy the odds, become his own person, become the best in the business for himself and himself only. It's a shadowy figure of what Omega used to be, and why he kept that figure away for so long. Still having the loss of Tanahashi on his shoulders and the undeniable label of AEW's top guy, the pressure to prove himself to new audiences, newer talent, and himself became increasingly harder with each loss he took, slowly but surely taking a strange peak into a negative form.
BT mailbag. First, it's that first one. Yeah, after All Out, and everyone's. I know what you're thinking. You know, you're thinking, how must you feel losing the big one, huh? And how you gonna beat Moxley now if you lose to Pac just like that? Well, you think I care? Because listen, I just right now I love the people. Yeah, it's the cheers that get me through it, brother. It's the cheers that get me through it. And I'm always gonna look up to the high heavens, and I'm gonna ask everyone for them cheers as you rain down on me. And I love you people. I'm the one. I love you people.
During the spanning weeks of Kenny's involvement on being the elite, the amount of change and emotional toll the losses took on him started to impact on the mindset of what he thought of critics and fans, simply saying to himself and others that he doesn't care, that he is truly only getting started.
I'm gonna stand up for the team. What? God, I speak a promo in character. Okay. What is he? Is he mad that I said bad things about Jon Moxley? No. How many fans do you think came to me and said, Kenny, they're not cool, bro. You really want to hurt John Moxley? You're not sympathetic to his injury? How many people do you think fucking said that? No, it's these children. It's these people that barely have a grasp on the English language, and they're tweeting at me saying, "No, how dare you say that? These guys aren't developmental talent. No, they're not developmental. And they're better than you. Actually, they did more for the business than you." Okay. In what fucking reality?
But there was a peak moment within the troubling times that the Young Bucks call on the fellow side of him, one that the majority of fans and his connection alike miss: the cleaner.
I don't know, I miss that guy we started this all with. I miss all the adventures we went on with you, Kenny. I miss the Kenny who we seconded down to the ring during all those big matches with Okada. I miss the Kenny with the killer instinct, man. And someone told us recently that Nick and I, we lost our killer instinct too. But I'm ready to find it again. And in DC, we start this new adventure. We start our big television show. We start Dynamite on TNT. And Kenny, we need you, man. We're in a fight that night that we don't even know what we're getting into. We don't even know who we're wrestling. What I'm trying to say is, we need the old Kenny. We need that Kenny. Kenny. We need the cleaner. All right, man. We'll see you in DC.
But the funny thing is that he chooses to ignore it, for a reason that is still unclear, but helps him grow and discover that he doesn't need to revert back to the negative places. To face the current issues in his life head first, ignoring the negative thoughts, to only complete attention to Moxley, to protecting Rio and Narc, to the loyalty of the Bucks and Paige, to forget the real issues at hand. Kenny's test explores the true realities of his emotions, bringing a sense of what Kenny's quest's negative impact truly expressed and explores. Rattling within a similar voice and negativity like in Kenny's quest. This time, however, brings the most important people into Kenny's life right at this very moment into a darkened light. The Young Bucks, Adam Page, Nakazawa, and Rio. And most importantly, Bushi. Within the distant relationship between himself and Bushi from Wrestle Kingdom and onwards, it's telling of their current relationship and one needing the other, or trying to not make it so known, or keeping it behind a locked mind. Some say it's for success, some say it's for the right thing, but this distance caused a spiral of previous loneliness. Bushi simply disappeared, thus transforming and bringing forth the idea of everyone else leaving him too. Because in the end, when everything and everyone fades, Omega only has his loneliness and the thoughts that come from it. Mental health within storytelling or otherwise is a struggling feat to conquer, especially in the shoes of your own. This is why the telling of Omega's own mental health is an interesting thing to note, especially now more than ever. Because when commentary comments on it, it starts to get noticed more.
How emblematic the struggles, the mental struggles that Kenny Omega has faced, the weights that hang over his head.
But his mental health is challenged by the ideals of the voice connected to Kenny's quest and Kenny's test, bring forth the idea of the questions, what exactly does the voice imply? Or rather, what is the voice? People say it's the expectations placed upon him from the Bullet Club or otherwise. Meanwhile, others manifest it to be the voice of New Japan itself, and the taunting of how he can never succeed without them, without the success they brought with the cleaner. But there is also the internalized pressures, dialogued of all the above, the sense of what other wrestlers, fans, critics, and his own friends have been viewing through a negative lens, trying to make sure that he is what they are, not who he truly is. The cleaner is the reason why people adore Omega. It's the true reason why he got the success that he deserves. However, the sacrifices of being the cleaner once more proved to be a negative impact into his life, rather than letting himself grow and still letting that baggage be on his shoulders and get heavier. I think it's safe to assume that this story isn't far from over. Like anything within storytelling and life itself, you need a true ending chapter to solidify where you want to be. And I don't think Omega is quite there yet. But this story is interesting because it's the perfect storyline to put onto a live TV platform like AEW's Dynamite. It's a perfect wrestling recipe of development within your own physical strengths and within your own storytelling. It's almost too good to be true, right? But I think the story needs its own spotlight within the future of story development or in these types of videos, because while we can have 10-minute segments about how Kenny is feeling or how crazy he is, at the end of the day, it doesn't add value that this development of broad sort of cast. And I think with a story like this, development is one that can be done in more ways than just a big screen.
どういうことでしょうか?
It's kind of difficult. I've never had children. I've never been a father. But I would imagine that if I did have children, and if I were a father, and I raised my kids to try to be the best they could be, and I made sacrifices, and I even put myself out there and tried harder than I ever have to make the best example for my children, and then they grew up to be disappointments. It's kind of how I feel.
もちろん僕は子供がいないし父親になったこともない。
Oh boy! I was meant to release this way before Ultimate Party, but ever since then, and ever since Kenny decided to do a press conference, oh, this is what we're gonna end up. Will I do a part 2? Who knows? But I hope you guys enjoyed this video because I've honestly enjoyed looking into it so far. Is the story truly over? Personally, no. Because like I said in my official ending, the ending chapter isn't solidified. And he's only working up towards here and I can sense it. Part 2? Let me know. Okay, bye!